Every year, Hollywood releases at least one horror movie that makes you remember why you love the genre. And every year, it also releases at least one that makes you question your own taste in films. I went through every single year from 2000 to 2025 and picked the single best and the single worst horror movie from each one. 26 years of horror highs and lows. Some of these worst picks are going to genuinely offend people who paid good money to see them in theaters. Let's go year by year. 2000, Best American Psycho. Patrick Bateman is one of the most unsettling characters in modern cinema because you can never be entirely sure whether what you're watching is real or the fantasy of a man so disconnected from humanity that murder has become his only mode of self-expression. Christian Bale disappeared into that role so completely that the film became genuinely disturbing rather than just a thriller. It holds up perfectly 25 years later. Worst, Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2. The original was a cultural phenomenon made for $60,000. The sequel had actual studio money and absolutely nothing to say. It abandoned everything that made the original terrifying. The Blair Witch franchise died in that sequel and never truly recovered. 2001, Best The Others. Nicole Kidman gave one of her finest performances in this atmospheric ghost story set in a wartime manor house. The film builds genuine dread through restraint, and the twist recontextualizes everything you've watched in a way that hits harder because the film earns it emotionally. Worst, Jeepers Creepers 2. The original had a genuinely unsettling setup on that highway. The sequel took the mysterious creature and put it on a school bus, stripping away everything threatening about it. Mystery was the entire point. Familiarity killed the sequel. 2002, Best 28 Days Later. Cillian Murphy waking up in an empty London is one of the great horror openings in cinema history. The rage virus redefined what a zombie could be, making them fast, feral, and terrifyingly human. The film had something to say about how quickly civilization collapses and how quickly people turn on each other. Worst, Resident Evil, the video game adaptation that launched an endless franchise by stripping out everything interesting about the source material. Mila Jovovich runs through corridors and kicks things for 90 minutes while a plot that makes almost no sense tries to hold everything together. 6 more films followed. 2003, Best Wrong Turn. A tough year for horror. Wrong Turn delivered a solidly effective backwoods slasher that knew exactly what it was. Worst, House of the Dead. Uwe Boll directed this video game adaptation, and it remains one of the most technically incompetent horror films ever released in theaters. It inexplicably cuts actual video game footage into the movie during action sequences, which is so baffling that film students still study it as an example of how not to make a movie. 2004, Best Saw. 2 men chained to pipes in a filthy bathroom. The setup is simple and the execution genuinely clever. The twist at the end is one of the best reveals in modern horror history. Saw proved that a horror movie made for almost nothing could outsmart films made for 50 times the budget. Worst, Van Helsing. Hugh Jackman fighting every monster in Universal's library while CGI ran so unchecked that every frame looked like a PS2 cutscene. The film tried to do everything and succeeded at nothing. 2005, Best The Descent. 6 women go caving in an uncharted system, and the movie terrifies you for its entire runtime. What makes it exceptional is that it works on 2 horror levels simultaneously. The claustrophobia and the darkness are terrifying before the creatures ever appear. The UK ending is one of the bleakest in horror history. Worst, Alone in the Dark. Uwe Boll again. Christian Slater and Tara Reid fought monsters while a plot that opened with a paragraph of on-screen text tried to explain itself. Tara Reid played an archaeologist. That is all you need to know. 2006, Best Pan's Labyrinth. Guillermo del Toro made one of the most visually extraordinary dark fantasy films ever produced. Set in post-Civil War Spain, it operates simultaneously as fairy tale, war film, and psychological horror. The pale man with eyes in his palms remains one of the most genuinely disturbing images in modern film. Worst, The Wicker Man remake. Nicolas Cage running around an island screaming about bees while a cult of women chases him is so comprehensively wrong in every direction that it has become a beloved meme rather than a horror film. Not the bees. 2007, Best Wreck. The Spanish found footage film that did everything the Blair Witch sequel failed to do. A television crew quarantined in an apartment building, and what follows is one of the most relentlessly terrifying horror experiences of the decade. The finale is genuinely iconic. Worst, I Know Who Killed Me. Lindsay Lohan plays twins in a film so incoherent that critics struggled to explain what it was actually about. It won 8 Razzie Awards. It is less a horror film than a testament to what happens when a production collapses in every department simultaneously. 2008, Best Let the Right One In. The Swedish vampire film proved the genre still had places to go that nobody had explored. A lonely, bullied boy befriends the strange pale girl next door, and the film builds a genuinely tender and disturbing relationship between a mortal child and an ancient vampire. One of the most original horror films of the century. Worst, The Happening. M. Night Shyamalan made a film where the villain is plants. Trees release a neurotoxin that makes people kill themselves, and Mark Wahlberg negotiates with a plastic houseplant. The dialogue sounds like it was translated through 5 different languages. Unintentionally, one of the funniest films ever made. 2009, Best Drag Me to Hell. Sam Raimi returned to horror after years on Spider-Man duty and reminded everyone why he made Evil Dead. A lone officer refuses to extend a gypsy woman's mortgage, and the curse that follows is pure, unhinged horror comedy. The parking lot fight sequence is a legitimate all-timer. Worst, Halloween 2. Rob Zombie's sequel featured Michael Myers having visions of his dead mother and a white horse while characters screamed at each other in every scene. Nihilistic, ugly, and joyless in a way that sucked all the fun out of the character. 2010, Best Black Swan. Darren Aronofsky made a psychological horror film disguised as a ballet drama, and Natalie Portman won an Oscar for one of the most committed performances in horror history. The body horror sequences are genuinely disturbing. Worst, A Nightmare on Elm Street remake. They took Freddy Krueger and made him boring. They removed his dark humor, which was his entire personality, and replaced it with grim humorlessness. Jackie Earle Haley is a talented actor who was given absolutely nothing to work with. 2011, Best Insidious. James Wan delivered a PG-13 horror film that was genuinely terrifying through atmosphere alone, which shouldn't be possible. The Further as a concept was one of the most creative ideas in modern horror. The lipstick-faced demon standing behind Patrick Wilson in the living room is still a perfectly executed scare. Worst, The Thing prequel. The 1982 original is a masterpiece of practical effects. The prequel replaced everything with CGI that looked worse than the 30-year-old original. It was the cinematic equivalent of drawing a mustache on a Rembrandt. 2012, Best The Cabin in the Woods. Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon made a love letter to horror that simultaneously deconstructed every genre trope while being genuinely scary on its own terms. The final act is one of the most gloriously unhinged sequences in modern horror. Worst, Paranormal Activity 4. The franchise needed to stop 2 movies earlier. Every trick had been used, every jump scare telegraphed. Nothing felt earned anymore. 2013, Best The Conjuring. James Wan proved that restraint is far more effective than excess. The clapping game scene should not be as terrifying as it is. The emotional investment in the Warrens made every scare land harder because you actually cared about the people in danger. Worst, Texas Chainsaw 3D. The film attempted to make Leatherface a sympathetic figure who deserved the audience's support. It fundamentally misunderstood what makes the character terrifying. He is not misunderstood. He wears a face made from someone else's skin. 2014, Best The Babadook. Jennifer Kent's debut explored grief and parenthood through a monster that may or may not exist. Essie Davis gave a performance of genuine emotional devastation, and the film understood that the most effective horror is about what you feel rather than what you see. Worst, Annabelle. The Conjuring spin-off took one of the most effective supporting elements of the original and expanded it into a film where the doll sat in various rooms looking vaguely creepy while very little happened around it. 2015, Best The Witch. Robert Eggers' debut is one of the most atmospheric and historically meticulous horror films ever made. A Puritan family expelled from their plantation encounters evil in the forest. The film's commitment to period detail and the genuine theological terror of the era creates something unforgettable. Anya Taylor-Joy made her debut here. Worst. Poltergeist Remake. The 1982 original is a masterpiece. The remake had better special effects and worse everything else. No reason to exist, no new angle, no impression left on anyone. 2016. Best Don't Breathe, a home invasion film that inverts the formula completely. The basement sequence is one of the most sustained stretches of dread in recent horror history. Director Fede Alvarez understood that the best horror makes the audience feel trapped alongside its characters. Worst, Blair Witch. The third entry added drones, GPS trackers, and a convoluted mythology. The original scared you with almost nothing. This one had everything and achieved nothing. 2017. Best Get Out. Jordan Peele used horror mechanics to explore racial anxiety in America in a way that was both literally terrifying and deeply metaphorical. Daniel Kaluuya's performance is extraordinary. The sunken place sequence is one of the most inventive horror concepts of the decade. Worst, Rings. The third Ring film was so tonally confused and narratively incoherent that it fundamentally undid the mythology of the original. Samara crawling out of a television in the original was terrifying. Here, she emerges from an airplane screen and lands with a thud that echoes through the entire film. 2018. Best. Hereditary. Ari Aster's debut is one of the most devastating horror films ever made. Toni Collette gave a performance that should have won every award available to it. The car scene is one of the most shocking moments in recent horror history. This is a film that stays with you for weeks and gets worse every time you think about it. Worst, The Nun. The Conjuring universe spin-off had the most terrifying preview in recent horror history and delivered almost none of the atmosphere it promised. Valak as a concept works as a supporting menace. As a lead character, it revealed that there was nothing beneath the surface. 2019. Best Us. Lupita Nyong'o's dual performance as Adelaide and Red is one of the great horror performances in cinema history. The Tethered as a concept is deeply unsettling, and the film rewards multiple viewings in a way that makes it more disturbing each time. Worst, It Chapter 2, a 2-hour, 49-minute film that somehow felt rushed. A stacked adult cast, 27 years of source material, and a CGI-heavy finale that was a significant step down from the practical horror of the first film. 2020. Best, His House. Remy Weeks used the haunted house genre to explore the refugee experience in a way that was both politically urgent and genuinely terrifying. The film understood that displacement and trauma are their own form of haunting. The horror comes from something far deeper than monsters. Worst, Fantasy Island. Blumhouse took a nostalgic TV property and satisfied absolutely nobody. Horror fans found it too tame. Fantasy Island fans found it too dark. Everyone found it confusing. The twist made the already thin plot make even less sense. 2021. Best. Malignant. James Wan made the most insane horror film of his career, and it is extraordinary for exactly that reason. The first 2 acts feel standard, then the third act happens, and the film becomes something so wildly original and unhinged that it divided audiences completely. The reveal of Gabriel is the kind of twist that redefines everything in an instant. Worst, The Forever Purge. The 5th Purge film proved conclusively that the franchise had nothing left to say. The original concept was compelling. By the 5th entry, the political subtext that once gave the series purpose had become pure noise. 2022, Best, Barbarian. Nobody walked in knowing what it was. Nobody walked out having seen what they expected. The film reinvents itself multiple times in ways that feel genuinely surprising. The basement sequences are among the most effectively staged horror scenes in years. Worst, Halloween Ends. Michael Myers spent most of his runtime as a supporting character in the final chapter of a trilogy built entirely around him. The franchise's most iconic villain was sidelined for the conclusion of his own story. 2023. Best, Talk to Me. A severed hand in a ceramic cast that allows teenagers to briefly invite spirits into their bodies. A genuinely original concept that uses possession as a metaphor for grief and addiction. Sophie Wilde's performance is a star-making turn. Worst, Scream 6. The New York setting was bold, but removing Neve Campbell while keeping every other legacy character felt like a fundamental miscalculation the film never recovered from. 2024. Best Nosferatu. Robert Eggers reimagined F.W. Murnau's 1922 silent masterwork with reverence and a cinematic language that honored the original while creating something completely new. Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok is one of the most extraordinary villain performances in recent horror history. Beautiful and repellent in equal measure. Worst, Alien Romulus. The fan service was obvious, and the decision to digitally recreate a deceased actor for a central sequence crossed a line that made the film feel more like a theme park attraction than a continuation of something sacred. 2025. Best Sinners. Ryan Coogler made his first entirely original blockbuster, a vampire film set in the Jim Crow South, and it was a revelation. Michael B. Jordan as twin brothers opening a juke joint in the Mississippi Delta is one of the best horror premises in years. The film is a blues ode, a vampire horror, and an allegory about freedom all at once. Worst, Wolfman. The Universal Monsters revival failed at every level. The creature design alienated audiences immediately, and the film never recovered from a first act that destroyed viewer goodwill before anything interesting had even happened. 26 years, 26 bests and 26 worsts. Some years gave us absolute masterpieces. Other years gave us Uwe Boll twice. Drop your picks in the comments because I know some of you have very different opinions about several of these selections. Subscribe because the next ranking is already written and it might be the most controversial video on this channel yet.